So it's the fourth match of the evening. We're on Frozen Temple once more. Everybody's favorite map, and spawning to the bottom right in pink, it's Azylis, our Protoss. And to the top left in teal, we have our Zerg player from Russia, it's Sunokasuri. A PvZ. And these players may even face each other for the first time. Azylis has already been a quite well-known part of the female scene for quite some time. Sunokasuri is actually pretty new to the whole European female scene. Haven't seen or casted her before in any ESL Cups, so that's always a bit difficult for a player to prepare for someone you've never faced before. But of course, Suno has already played some Zergs, I think, in this season, or has she? I think she's faced Mitsukatsu, I think. No, but not Protoss. Has she faced? But yeah, of course she's faced. Sunokasuri has faced Poison last week. So, Lady Azylis going for the fast expand. Quite normal here, nothing unusual. Meanwhile, we have the hatchery first for Suno, and then going into gas and spawning pool. Quite typical opening. We've seen that quite often already this evening and throughout the season. If there aren't any complete metagame shifts in the future, we'll see this again and again, probably as the season continues. And then the double gas for Azylis over here, waiting until the Nexus finally completes, so that she then will be able to transfer some probes and of course send future probes down to the second base. Overlord spots everything, just gets a good view of the main entrance towards Azylis base, so Suno now knows quite well what she's up against, although she's probably expected as much already. Robo down for Azylis. And Metabolic Boost in the meantime in the making for Suno. Well, we have the first Stalker here, which is quite interesting. Maybe Azylis just wants to try to shoot down this Overlord over here. Although this will probably not gonna work, because the Overlord should be able to escape to here. But of course, the Stalker is also good in defending this wall, although you normally just want to trust your trustworthy Mothership Core and the Pylon Overcharge, the Photon Overcharge on the Pylon, to defend that part. Normally it's more than enough if your opponent doesn't commit heavily towards a Baneling bust. But Suno does no such thing. She's already taken her own third base after seeing that her opponent went for a normal expand build, so she just wants to out macro her by taking a third base of her own, keeping up the production in just a few minutes, so that she will eventually have enough units to whittle down her opponent. If Azylis, of course, doesn't have something up her sleeves to keep her from doing that unpunished. And she's already working on it by producing this little Immortal and a Warp Prism. Looks as if Azylis has taken a lesson with Koshki here. Because, but there's something we don't see that often, but also more often in the last few days, where Zergs just keep getting the early Overlord speed in order to get a better scouting of what their opponent's up to. And she actually saw everything. Saw the Warp Prism, saw the robotics facility being chrono boosted. So Suni actually has all the necessary information she needs. She should assume that with the chrono boosted robotics unit, whatever it may be, and the Warp Prism, there's a heavy gateway push incoming. So I don't know if I really like this moving out with just Lings. There's not really much she can do with Lings over here. She should actually just try to get something up that will help her against the sheer amount of units that's just headed away. And Azylis even going for a Dark Shrine behind it. So yeah, it actually really does as if she took a lesson from Koshki or two, or just Googled a good build order and a good all-in for Protoss. But it looks a lot different from what she's done in the games before today. And yeah, this looks so Koshki, I mean. This is just what Koshki does so often, the Warp Prism Immortal drop with the gateway units behind it. And there are more gateways incoming, so it looks more all in by the second. So, units now on the way. Suno is going to spot it with the Overlord over here. She barely has units here. I don't really think she can hold that. I mean, she has some roaches in the mix, but the roaches will just get shredded by these Immortals. And she has actually, this is actually the worst thing about it, she doesn't have anything against that Warp Prism, so she won't be able to get, and she even only has Lings while Azylis is warping in more and more Zealots. That will also just counter the Lings so hard. So actually, Azylis just has all the units she needs to hard counter all of the units that Suno has. Suno just tries to pass by the Zealots and try to get on top of the Immortals, but it's just not enough Lings. The Zealots will just get back, and then we also have some DTs morphing in, or warping in as well, and we have no detection available at all. Yeah, there's no way that Suno is going to hold this. I mean, this just looks terrible for her. There's just too little, too late of everything. Like I said, she doesn't even have, does she even have layer tech? Now she has layer tech. And finally an Overseer is morphing, so now she will be able to see these Zealots, these Dark Templar at least. But still, I think Azylis could just go and kill it. I mean, what is there? There's only a few roaches. I mean, even if you have Dark Templar spotted, they still dish out a lot of damage. And of course, you have the Immortals in the back. Where's the Warp Prism actually? It's still over here. Okay, more units warping in. Zealots actually being a good choice. Because they actually, with speed, especially work better against roaches than the adepts. And that's it. Azylis takes the first game. We're back on Galactic Process. It's the second game of the series. Spawning to the bottom left corner, it's the Teal Zerg Sunokasuri. And she's behind 1-0. 0-1. And in the top right hand corner in pink, it's Azylis. Sending out a very early probe scout here with a pylon in the back. Maybe it's just a normal scout. Maybe she wants to cannon rush her opponent. Depends on what building comes down here next. Nah. Or is it going to be a one-gate proxy? Ooh! Second pylon right over here. This is going to be an interesting build. Let's see if this is going to work out. Maybe it's going to be another one of Koshki's favorites. The infamous 4-gate proxy all-in. There's the first, there's the second. There's the third. And she's waiting for enough minerals for the fourth. And there it is. Man, Azylis is just ripping off any of Koshki's builds here. But come on, if it works, of course, that's actually, as disgusting as it sounds, that's actually one part of the FSL and of that league. That players see a lot of tactics by other players, try to copy them, try to practice with them or against them in order to hold this. So this is actually part of what the FSL is all about. I'm just loving it. This is actually just great. I just love to see that already the learning is happening, the adapting is happening. And this is something I was really hoping for. So in the meantime, just have a look at poor Sunokasuri's base. She has at least had a spawning pool for quite some time. It's already researching speed. So this is at least maybe the best she can do. Her base down here is up already, but she has done nothing in order to scout that base. She's only relied on Overlord scouts, and we were talking about this in earlier series where Zerg played their opponents, where they send out an early drone scout in order to find out about this a lot earlier. So yeah, Suno has to be a little bit worried because she sees no natural base over here. Of course, there could be a hidden base over there, but she'll realize what's up in just a few seconds. And there's only a queen here and a few lings, which just won't do jack shit. Oh, actually a few more lings here, but still, I mean, this is still problematic. Zealots were made to rip through lings, so they will actually fight quite well against this force. Queen is sitting nicely here, but blocking the own lings. Oh, nicely done by Suno so far. So she managed to take out the first wave of zealots, which is actually a huge success for her in countering this build. There's also Spinecrawler going down here. She's just producing lings after lings, and Azylis just has to wait actually a little more for some more units before she can just move in once more. Okay, Suno does not really know where her opponent's base is. She tries to find it now by sending out the lings a little bit. Okay, has just seen the probe, but she leaves it on her own. Yeah, the biggest problem of this is, of course, that if you do it correctly, and Azylis did it that way, you have the powering pylon right in the middle of the gates. So the biggest problem here is that you cannot really unpower all of these gates at once. Of course, there's another pylon you could kill, but that wouldn't lead to the gates being unpowered. So yeah, this is actually a big problem. Suno, the only thing that Suno can really build right now are lings, but she's already built the correct counter. Very, very nicely done by Suno here. She's reacted perfectly to this with a Baneling nest and is already morphing Banelings. So the only thing she has to do now is just moving around, keeping the slow zealots just away from her own units, just tearing apart more and more of these hit points of these gateways. And once the Protoss just decides to commit towards her own base, she has all of these Banelings just smashing into the zealots, killing them off in an instant, or at least powering them, getting the hit points down below a certain amount. So okay, a lot of Banelings just move in there. This weren't the quite hits you wanted to do, but there are more Banelings incoming. So again, just surrounding all of these zealots that have to do with the Spinecrawler here, and Azylis. GG's out. Yeah, probably the first time she's tried to play this cheese. So she has to work a little how to work it out more exactly. But also great defense by Suno, who just did the exactly right steps in order to counter this. It's 1-1. We're on King Sejong Station, spawning to the bottom right in pink. It's Azylis. And to the top left in teal, we have our Zerg player Sunokasuri, who just managed to tie the series 1-1. And now we're in our third match of this series, with Azylis doing two very aggressive builds in the first two games. One time it worked, the other time it didn't. So let's see what she's trying to do this time around, and how Suno is going to respond to that. Looks like a standard gateway opening. One assimilator already being taken, so nothing all too special happening on either sides of the map. Hatchery first, then gas, then pool, and the overlords already trying to take their positions. One overlord over here, so that's going to see a huge part of that ramp, and especially when units move out, they normally use that path over here. So exactly over here, so over this little edge here. So if you have an overlord positioned here, you will either see the nexus being planted down, and you will also see units moving out over that edge here. So this is why you normally want to have your overlord position over here. Of course, against Protoss, it doesn't really work that well or that long, because Protoss normally have an early mothership core, and the mothership core will provide some high ground vision. So if you have a mothership core and a stalker, it's pretty easy to get rid of this scouting overload over here. So, like I said before, some Zerg, in PvZ try to get this base up as the second base first, then going into natural. Suno doesn't. just takes the old school approach. While in the meantime we have a Robo for Azylis, so maybe we're going to see the drop build once more, the Immortal drop build from the first game, or maybe something completely different. We can't really be sure yet. 2 links on the way towards Azylis base to get some scouting information. Proxy pylon for Photon Overcharge already in position, actually a bit far away from the Nexus, so this pylon won't be able to protect the mineral line from something happening. But of course 2 links won't do that much damage. I mean, with a bit of luck, the 2 links will be able, actually it's 4 links now, so maybe with a bit of luck the 4 links will be able to get 1 or 2 probes before the Mothership Core shoots them down. But yeah, you normally want to have the first pylon a lot closer to your Nexus in order to help it defend. So yeah, like I said, no 2 probes. Yeah, like I said, 1 maybe 2 probes before the Mothership Core finally shoots them down. Not really much accomplished. I mean, that was like 100 minerals against 100 minerals. Of course, it's always quite nice to keep the Protoss from mining a little bit, but yeah, that was just minor damage. It was okay, nothing spectacular, they just paid off for themselves. And now Suno is taking a 3rd base, while another 2 speedlings this time make it over the place. I think these 2 speedlings will probably try to sneak into the main base, but there's a Stalker already in place, so they won't be able to do much. No, actually just sending them with an A move, so they will now attack this pylon over here, and the Mothership Core will shoot once more. Okay, trying to get some more probe damage done, actually quite nice, and here we see it, the pylon is just out of range of the mineral line, but yeah, probe micro just prevents a probe from dying. More links streaming in. I actually don't like how Suno is just donating more and more free links towards Azylis with this. I mean, there's not much she can actually do. She already has something as an Overlord hanging above the 3rd base, and again the early speed for the Overlords, so now she will be able to get a good vision of the inside of the base. Okay, this time it's actually the same build, but this time with Adepts instead of Zealots. And yeah, Suno actually, again, she should know everything by now. She sees the Warp Prism, she sees the Robo being chrono boosted, she sees the Twilight Council being chrono boosted. So the build is pretty common. So if you don't know what's going to happen now, nobody can help you. So let's see how Suno reacts this time. Knowing that the 4-gate all-in was coming her way, she reacted superbly and did all the necessary steps she needed to do, but this time she gets the information quite late actually. The two Immortals are already done, but unfortunately Azylis is also, probably because of the harassment inside her natural base, a little late with all of the gateways, so the timing is a bit off. I mean, her Warp Prism is done, her 2 Immortals are done, but the gateways are still missing. So this is timely a little bit off. It could have been played out a little bit better, then the push would actually hit a little bit sooner and thus be more deadly even. So, and again, you know, the same thing behind it. It's the Dark Shrine also incoming. We have some roaches being produced, but of course we had this in the first game, and it's almost the same amount of units and the same composition, and it didn't work the first time around. I mean, it's 1 Spore Crawler. It might help to shoot down the Warp Prism if Azylis should ever be stupid enough to put it in range of it, but she probably won't. So I don't really know if a Spore Crawler is actually the best solution here. And there are the units incoming. Yeah, and again, I mean, this is just painful to watch once more. Right now, Suno just has nothing to keep this from happening. I like these 2 Banelings actually, but she might have thought that it was again speed lots, which could have been. This is actually the biggest problem with this build. She couldn't really have guessed that Adepts were coming because she was only seeing the Twilight Council rotating and upgrading, but it could have also been speed because she was using speed lots in the first match. So she probably assumed speed lots and built some Banelings. But of course, Banelings also work quite okay against Adepts if you have enough of them, but she just didn't. And again, her force is just too small. Even if she should manage to crush this little force, there's more reinforcements incoming. And now even throwing down the time warp, so these units can't even escape. Azylis just walks over them and will then continue to tear down the 3rd base. I mean, other units are just streaming in. Suno tries her best to morph some more Lings and Banelings in order just to get the best connection she can, and hopes for the best. Yeah, it hopes just for the best. There's an Archon now in the mix as well, morphed from DTs. No DTs this time in the mix, but if there were, there wouldn't even be detection. And yeah, it's the same picture as in the first build. It works out pretty nicely for her. So I think Suno maybe has to work on her scouting. Send the scouting overlord in maybe a little bit earlier, and then she might be able to keep this from happening. But that way, Azylis takes the 2-1 lead. It's the fourth match of the series. We're on Frost, spawning to the top right position in teal. It's Sunokasuri, and she's down 1-2. She really has to take that game in order to stay in the series. Otherwise, she will have lost it. And to the top left-hand side, in pink, it's Azylis. And of course, she only needs to take one more game to close out this best of 5 in her favor. So going for the immediate wall off at the natural base to make it easier to get this base done. This is actually a bit risky, but only a little bit, because if your opponent started with an early 12 pool and just had a bit of luck with scouting, they could just send a lot of Lings right down towards here and just tear down all of these buildings before the gap is closed. But of course, like I said, it's only a little bit risky. Most Zergs really don't try to early Ling bust you or early Ling push you in this matchup anymore. It's also very risky for Zerg to do, because if you it only works in specific situations, especially in this one. I mean, if Azylis just decided to go for a complete wall off up here, a 12 pool would also be pretty problematic for Zerg, and you would have to do a lot of damage. And yeah, so it's also a lot of luck based. And on this base, of course, you have 4 spawning positions. So with 4 spawning positions available, it's also quite unlikely that you will actually hit the right expansion at the right time, being able to do enough damage here. But still, you see, right? It's still a gap over here. So if the Lings like manage to come in a little bit later, you would still be able to do a lot of damage at that point. But like I said, it's very unlikely to happen. So it's only kind of a risk, but not really. In the meantime, Suno decides for a very heavy macro build, going to an early 3 hatch even before the pool. So this time she really wants to ramp it up, just outproduce her opponent, macro it heavily, and then just overrun it with mass Zerg. That's the way Zerg is actually supposed to be played. Just overrun your opponent with the mighty swarms. So let's see if Suno is going to be able to do that, or if Azylis will again interrupt her executing this plan with another heavy 2-base timing push. Thus far it looks like it, because we see the Robo Bay produced, but okay, that could actually mean everything or anything at all. But yeah, she's done the Warp Prism Immortal build, one time with Zealots, one time with Adepts, and the attack speed upgrade for the Adepts, the Resonating Glaives. And it worked out pretty nice for her, so why not do it again? Why change a winning build if you're on a winning streak and if you're up to 1? Because even if it doesn't work once more, you just have a tight match so far, a tight series, and you could still try something else in the 5th game. So it seems as if we're going to see the same thing once more. Yeah, there's the Twilight Council. Okay, the only thing right now that really interests us is, will she go for Zealots or for Adepts once more? It actually doesn't really make that much of a difference. I mean, Adepts with the Resonating Glaive upgrades are better against Lings. So if Suno builds a lot of Lings, that would actually be better to have Adepts. If her opponent goes for more Roach-heavy based army, then the Speedlots would actually be better. Because the Speedlots just close the gap between Roaches and Zealots so fast and deal a lot of damage. Actually, a Zealot beats a Roach in a one-on-one if nobody micros. So yeah, the Zealots are actually a little bit better than the Adepts. because even with the upgrade, the Adepts just dish out a lot less DPS than the Zealots, except for light units, which Lings are, and that of course makes them better against Lings. So in the meantime, nicely done by Sunokasuri here, just spreading her overlords everywhere she can, just getting a lot of map vision over here, checking for the third base, okay, probably being a bit worried, because again, if a Protoss doesn't throw down his third Nexus at about 5 minutes at the latest, then you should worry about a 2-base timing push. And you should actually even know what's coming your way, and this is again, I think, the big problem Sunokasuri has here. She doesn't know jack shit. I mean, she might assume things, and she's already producing 8 roaches. She doesn't want to fall for that once more. But again, roaches might not be the best answer. I mean, actually, from now on, she would have really have to press the roach button, and there we have it, the speed, so it's going to be Zealots this time around. So maybe a bit unlucky for Suno again. She goes for a heavy roach base army this time, and Azylis decides to go for the Zealots. Actually, but the bad thing about this is that there's actually no real way to figure this out, what's coming your way. If it's going to be either Adepts or... You know that it's going to be either Adepts or Zealots if you see the Twilight Council just rotating. I mean, it could also be Blink, but then the timing would hit a lot later and with less units because Stalkers are so expensive. Gas-wise, so you couldn't really do that. So if you know the build and if you see the Warp Prism, you know that it's going to be either Adept or Zealots, but there's no real way to figure out which one of that. I mean, of course, if you see a few more units around already, like a few more Zealots or a few more Adepts, you might get a hint, but oftentimes you just won't be able to see that. Okay, this is actually a nice roach attack here. Suno just wrecks the first Immortal right as it comes out, and even the warp in gets denied. So yes, Suno this time has defended the first push really, really well. Azylis has to back up, which is actually not what she really wanted to do. This time we have some more Zealots in the way, and even some... This is actually odd. Even some Adepts, I don't really know why she did it. Maybe it was a misclick, or maybe she just needed them for something else, or just because there were so many links down here that she decided to go for the Adepts intuitively, I don't know. So, but where's the... Oh, there's the Warp Prism with the... Oh, this is actually a bad anti-timing right here. So we have only... And now we see that Adepts really just don't cut it against the Roaches. Yeah, Warp Prism just at the wrong location at the moment. We have the... Oh, but we have a lot of Photon Overcharges here. No, Suno! Ah, no! Don't fight inside the Photon Overcharge. Oh, this is causing some heavy losses, and now the Immortal is finally back at home. Nice Warp Prism Micro here by Azylis, just giving up a shot at a time, and now Suno will be able maybe to clear off these units, but actually she's just again losing all of her army. There's the typical Dark Templar also incoming as well, and now she's just lost all of her army in the attack. Oh, it was such a good attack until she decided to fight under the heavy fire of the photon cannons, or the pylon cannons there. Oh, and now this is a bit problematic. Unfortunately, she has Overseers over here, so she might be able to keep this push again away once more. But of course, Azylis doesn't even have that many resources over, so the next few warp-ins shouldn't be all too heavy. But Suno really needs to know what's heading away, and unfortunately she's just droning and taking another base. 7 drones on the way, the Spire is almost done, but ugh. And now she's, of course, missing 7 more units, and these more units could just do the trick. But it looks quite nice still, but they're the Archons incoming, and they will be a game changer. It's 4 Archons dishing out a lot of biological damage. Archons do splash damage against, and extra damage against biological units, which are all units and buildings of Zerg are. And again, Suno just barely can't really decide whether she should engage or leave for a later moment, and the rest of the units just won't do the trick. Oh, so sad for her, but a small little mistake. Too much drone will kill you. Too much drone will kill you. Oh, too bad. Now even her Spire Tech is just worth nothing. There's nothing she can produce with the Spire Tech. It won't really help against the Mutas. Mutas wouldn't help against the Archons. They would just get shot down immediately in bunches, so that just doesn't help. And here we see how good Zealots are against Roaches. Just closing the distance very quickly, killing off everything. And that's Suno's army. Yeah, more supply, More bases, but not enough to defend. GG! And Azylis takes the series 3-1.